Now, those of you who are joining us may have read in the paper or heard that Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk, very prominent scientists, have raised concerns about recent advances in artificial intelligence. They're cautioning that it's advancing so quickly that we humans might lose control of it. It might even control us. 2 weeks ago, under Wendell's leadership, the Hastings Center convened a project meeting right here in our library, in our Garrison facility, with major leaders in artificial intelligence and robotics. We had experts from Google's DeepMind, from Facebook, from the Davos World Economic Forum, all responsive to Wendell's invitation. We also had major scholars from Carnegie Mellon, UC Berkeley, RPI, and a number of other places where the thought leadership resides. And these were experts in computer science, AI, robotics, but also, importantly, in sociology and the social sciences and in philosophy, people who are concerned about the social implications of these technologies and of AI and robotics in particular. So we gathered about 2 weeks ago here, and I asked Wendell if he would chat with me now on this during this event so that you could have a little window in. So thanks, Wendell, for
Great.
for
Thank you,
doing
Millie.
this.
Thanks for inviting me.
So the first question I was going to pass by you is, what's all the fuss? Why would people like Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk be expressing concerns?
Well, there are even people in the AI universe who are wondering what all the fuss is and whether we're really making a little too much of a mountain out of a molehill. But to make it quick, there have been breakthroughs in AI, often referred to as deep learning, that have solved certain problems in perception and learning for artificial intelligence, for software learning systems that had bedeviled researchers for the past 20, 30 years. In fact, it made some researchers even wondered whether these problems were unsolvable. So, for example, now you can have a computer system that has been fed massive quantities of data, look at a photograph, and accurately label many of the images in that photograph. And some of the other things you've been hearing about, such as a DeepMind program, AlphaGo, beating the world's best Go player in a match last month, 4 games to 1. So this isn't just deep learning. They used other techniques, but it has made it evident that suddenly we are having significant leaps forward. And every time there's a significant leap forward, people start to imagine, well, perhaps we're going to now break through all of the ceilings on artificial intelligence, and at last it's coming. And if it's coming, will it be controllable? So a lot of researchers have now flagged this as a concern. And even Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking, they aren't trying to stop the development of artificial intelligence or robotics. They just want us to start directing our attention to whether we can ensure it's beneficial and controllable and truly safe.
Is it because these machines can now learn how to learn that we think they can develop greater and greater capacities? Is that right? Or is it more the ability, the fact that they could actually see and understand what they're looking at?
There's no understanding at this stage of the game. Let's be clear about that. And even when we talk about machine learning, we're usually talking about the capacity to learn in some discrete ways. So we have different approaches to learning in artificial intelligence, and each of them has shown to be useful for solving certain kinds of tasks. But these deep learning algorithms, which is one of the approach, have been particularly significant in solving these questions of perception. Largely what's happening is this computer system, a kind of artificial neural network, meaning it doesn't have just one processor, but it has many processors, each acting as if it's a different neuron. They're bombarded with massive amounts of information, and they have shown success in solving some quite fascinating tasks, including winning at certain kinds of computer games, not just AlphaGo.
Wow, thanks. Now, as a participant in the meeting, I was fascinated to hear that there was really a range of views. Before the meeting, I had a chance to sit down with Ilan Norbosch from Carnegie Mellon, and he expressed some concerns that worrying about the safety and controllability of AI down the road was distracting us from some nearer term concerns that he thinks we really should be paying attention to. And I wondered if you could say what the nature of those concerns is.
Well, this is a big issue because some of the people in AI feel that flagging these futuristic issues about perhaps eventually having machines that are more intelligent than humans, whether it's actually just frightening the public when we're still dealing with rather simple machines solving rather basic tasks. So even when a computer wins at a game of Go or chess or something like that, that's not what we refer to as artificial general intelligence. So are we just getting a lot of people concerned over not very much? I'm of a mixed mind on this. On one level, I do think that the attention needs to be paid to the nearer term concerns, the ways in which self-driving cars and computers in medicine and caregiving computers will be used. But I realize that actually this attention on the longer term concerns is actually directing much more attention also on the shorter term concerns. And I think the bigger issue will be how should we allocate our resources? Should we be allocating resources to very futuristic considerations that don't impact the way we develop systems today? Or shall we be more focused on the nearer term considerations?
I remember Illa saying that one of the near-term concerns he has is, we read so much about privacy concerns with big data, but he thinks that's real, very real, but he also raised the issue of how smart software is shaping our preferences and able to, in a sense, a control issue. Controlling, not that we're losing control of computers, but that smart software can actually control us and our preferences. What's he talking about there?
Well, some of you are already seeing that. When you turn on your computers, there are certain advertisements that come your way. Sometimes those are things that you looked at previously on another program, or they're similar to that. So this is already ways of trying to influence your subconscious mind, if not your conscious mind, to give attention to things that are going to serve somebody if you buy their products. So that's the obvious form in which it's taking place now. But as more and more data gets collected about you and your habits and your behaviors, the software may flash all kinds of information at you that could affect your preferences in some very dramatic ways down the road.
Could you give us a feeling for some of the applications? The Hastings Center would be particularly interested in anticipating applications that have to do with health or healthcare.
Well, some of you have heard this term, the Internet of Things. So the Internet of Things refers to that there'll be a microprocessor in nearly everything you own. Your refrigerator, your television set, all of your health appliances and so forth. And the question is, what happens to the data that those things collect? So let's say you have a little robot in the home. Well, that robot in the home might be able to look at your keys, and your keys could be and are broadcasting what your keys look like to somebody who's intercepting that signal, and perhaps could reproduce those keys then and break into your home. So that would be one example. But another example would be that your personal habits, some that you may want to have kept secret, get flashed to your insurance company, and based on that, it changes your insurance
Now,
rates.
how could that happen? Give us an example of that. Is my insurance company going to know something about my health behavior?
Well, there are even people who are looking at things like electric toothbrushes and whether the electric toothbrushes will broadcast how long you actually brushed your teeth today. So it's nice to have an electric toothbrush that flashes and tells me that I've now brushed my teeth for 2 minutes, but do I really want my insurance company to know that? And might the insurance company use that data and down the road change the kind of dental policy they give me?
Yeah, they could create incentives for you to have good personal dental hygiene, or they could ding you.
They could ding me. And so this is the real challenge here. On one level, many of us may be happy with the incentive. We may feel that the fear that our insurance company will change our rate will get us to perform the kind of health habits we want to have. So that's a good side. And nearly every one of these applications being developed is being developed because somebody thinks it's very good. And will meet not only, the company's needs, the company's marketing needs, but also meet our personal preferences. But at the same time, there will be these interferences in our privacy that can perhaps be used in ways that we will deeply resent.
So privacy concerns also, I imagine, physicians themselves are having to make choices about how AI works in the healthcare system itself.
This has become a big issue because there are now these massive diagnostic programs that have looked at millions of cases of patients being treated in different ways and how successfully they've been treated, look at different symptoms and whether the interpretation of the symptom has been correct or not. And a lot of these programs are better than the doctors themselves at the diagnosis. And the questions then become, well, since they are better, should the doctors be deferring to the software? And what if the doctor thinks he or she sees something that the software does not see? Then will the doctor be able to override the software? And will the doctor feel free to override the software when in our litigious society, people will have these audit trails of what the machine recommended? So is the doctor and the hospital going to get sued if they go against the recommendation of the computer software itself? So this has, for example, become one of the big issues in medical care. It's being used even for end-of-life decisions, which is a major concern, I know, for the Hastings Center. And data is being made both to the doctors and to the management of hospitals, helping them reduce the costs for end-of-life concerns. Now, if we're reducing the cost because we aren't keeping people alive by silly means, or that we aren't keeping people alive by things that will really torture them and have nothing to do with their symptomatology, most of us would probably think that's pretty good. But if this starts to be used in a way where we don't give care to people who perhaps have conditions which they could be treated for, then even if that's saving healthcare costs, few of us would support that.
Aging societies, a great interest at the Hastings Center. We have a program area called Aging, Chronic Conditions, and End-of-Life Care. We have a rapidly changing demographic here that is tilting towards a much bigger proportion of our population. Japan is, I think, the country with the greatest number of elderly, and they're making incredible strides, if you see it as a positive, in creating companion robots to care for frail elders. And I thought maybe you could describe what's going on with service robots, in particular companions for the elderly.
Well, I wouldn't describe what's going on as incredible strides, but there is a deep interest in this, largely because Japan does have a demographic problem. It doesn't like to let in immigrants, and therefore, as the population gets older, it doesn't have people to take care of those elderly.
Are we going to see more companion robots here too, though? Anything
that's successful will find its way here too. So we'll see those companion robots here also. The question is whether these healthcare robots or these elderly care robots or even robots to take care of youngsters, whether we're really substituting a machine where there's no there's no person, there's no feeling entity there for the kinds of personal touch that we would like them to have. For example, there are questions about whether very young children might actually have their cognitive faculties interfered with if they were interacted with for long periods of time with robots. The cognitive faculties might not develop as well as we would like them to because it is not as rich in interaction. So unfortunately, that's not a question that we have the research ethics where we could actually check it out, but it is a very real concern. And again, for the elderly, it's the same thing.
So you were saying this will be true for the elderly too. You know, one of the things I discussed at the meeting was that people were you can imagine really helpful uses for this. Somebody was describing an exoskeleton that an elder person would still be able to walk on their own so that they were exercising their muscles. They weren't going to have any muscle loss. But should they fall or lose their balance, the exoskeleton would catch them. So it seemed like it had the perfect combination of allowing freedom and making sure you don't have muscle atrophy while offering protection. So I felt quite excited about the ways in which
It's very
robots might
exciting.
be able to help us.
Very excited. I have an older friend who's been checking this technology out for a long time, and though a little of it's being marketed in Japan, they don't market them here yet. But it's not just that it would catch you, it could give you assistance in movement. Could give you assistance in movement, and it could give you lower back support, which is very important. And you can have actually an exoskeleton on the top of your body, and between the two you could lift a car.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
In fact, that's what a lot of this is being developed for warehouse workers. We're either going to have warehouse workers that are going to be cyborgs with exoskeletons, or we're going to have a lot of robots in warehouses carrying big boxes that really no human should be carrying.
Well, that raises the whole question. I'm not sure we were going to have time to go there, but you just raised that question of technological unemployment. So I have to ask you before we open. We're going to open the floor to questions, but I thought maybe I'll end with that.
So technological unemployment's a big one. This is John Maynard Keynes's 1930s term for the long-standing Luddite fear that each new technology will rob more jobs than it creates. But for 200 years, it hasn't happened. There have always been secondary jobs created by the new technologies. The question, though, is it different this time? Because we are having increasingly capable robots that can take more and more human jobs. And furthermore, people are living longer and retiring later. So these are two technological benefits. Now, some economists like to look back at the past and saying, well, we'll get the same thing this time. We'll get all the secondary jobs. I'm among those who's not convinced. I think that we will see increasing technological unemployment, and furthermore, robots are already a downward pressure on wage growth and job growth. So we need to do some greater research about, is this happening? Is it different this time? And if so, what do we do about it? Is it a robotic problem, or is it a problem of our political economy and how we compensate people who no longer have work?
I want to thank the Future of Life Institute, which is our funder, and they made this award to us with funding from Elon Musk himself. So he is concerned, and he's also walking the talk and providing funding to help examine these issues, and we're very, very grateful for that. As Wendell said, there's going to be 2 more meetings here. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Wendell.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for joining us.